Good morning, everybody. I am Omni Rusted, and it's time, it's past time, honestly, for my long-awaited RimWorld Tutorial Series to start over, considering that the game has officially released by Tan and Sylvester, and Ludeon Studios, and, well, the Royalty DLC has come out. Like, it's long past time that I should have been doing the tutorial series. I completely understand that, and I've got my notes, got everything done. We're going to revise everything and actually delete the old videos, or at least put a marker on them saying that they are outdated. I haven't decided yet. But without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, and here we are in the base game itself, or at least the base game along with the Royalty DLC. So, the Royalty DLC adds a bunch of things, and I will go over those in a later video, but for right now, we're going to be going with the vanilla base game. As you can see from my mod list, I do have a lot of mods, and I will do a mod group breakdown later, and what I would recommend, or quality of life, whatever, but for now, we're going to be going with the vanilla game. So, you can do the tutorial, of course. It does explain the basics. I'm going to be doing the more in-depth thing, breaking apart different areas of the game and whatnot. So, let's hit New Colony. The beginning scenarios, of course, are Crash Landed, where you get 3 people and a bunch of supplies to start out with. This is, of course, the easiest and recommended one if you're a beginning player. Lost Tribe ups the difficulty a little bit more by giving you 5 people, but you'll start poor and lack technology. It's a more difficult scenario because it'll take much, much longer to research anything. Rich Explorer, you start off with a heck of a lot of material, a heck of a lot of stuff, but you only have one. Let's call them pawns for now. I think that's the base, the base colonist name. And then Naked Brutality, which is of course the most difficult. You start with 1 person and nothing else. We're gonna go with Crash Landed now as an example. The scenario editor down here can of course build your own scenario, but we're not gonna go into that right now. The beginning AI storytellers: Cassandra Classic, Phoebe Chillax, and Randy Random. Now, Cassandra Classic is how the game is intended to be played. There is a little bit of time between events, whether they be good or bad, and they are, of course, multiplied by the difficulty that you choose. You can, of course, hover over to see everything that you're going to be seeing. There's a big difference between Cassandra Classic and Phoebe Chillax, the basic being the time between events. These both are designed to build a story. Now, RimWorld is a storyline game. That is one of the biggest things to keep in mind. So Cassandra Classic is frequent events at medium difficulty, I would say. Phoebe Chillax is exactly the same, except she gives longer time between events, but when the events come, they are harder than you would normally get with Cassandra Classic, but they regularly do have the same kind of storytelling kind of AI with them. Randy Random doesn't care. He just throws random, just whatever he feels like at the time. The only programming he has is to attempt to stay the difficulty so it keeps you under 13, between 13 and 20 colonists. He'll start to ramp up the difficulty, but he doesn't care about storyline. There is reloading time mode and commitment mode. You must choose between these. Consider commitment mode like Iron Man in any other game. It saves for you. It only auto-saves. You can save when you exit, but there is no reloading of the game unless you want to save scum. Reloading time mode is save scum galore. It creates auto-saves every single day, about 5 of them in a row, to 10 of them in a row. I'm not exactly sure on that one because I never use it. This one, if something really, really bad happens, you can go to a different autosave in the previous in the past, and you can reload it. If you're a beginning player, I would suggest reload anytime mode. If you're trying out a bunch of new mod sets, I would suggest reload anytime mode. But generally, commitment mode, it's not going to hurt you too much. RimWorld is about loss. It is a survival game. It is not a colony building game. It is a survival game, and that's one thing to keep in mind. When creating a world, you can use this Randomize Seed thing, or you can put a name that you want in. For example, we're going to put in Omni Rusted. Globe coverage. This is how much of the world is going to be spawned and generated by the game itself when you're searching for where to land your new colony. It's basically, it might take a while. It says it takes a very long time to generate an entire planet at 100%. Not in my experience, to be honest. Overall rainfall is how much rainfall you're going to get, how much marshy area on the planet you're going to get, how often it's going to rain in your colony itself. Overall temperature, you can set it to very, very high to get a desert planet, very low to get an ice planet, yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, sparse, normal, or crowded is how close you want the factions that are going to be generated on our planet to be. So we hit 100%. It'll give you a couple little, tips here. It'll show any mods that you do have while it generates the world, and this is to basically show you that the 100% world honestly doesn't take that long. I usually go with 100% world because at that point it gives you much more options of where to land. The world events such as the get to the ship victory condition is all determined on where you land your colony, so you don't really have to worry about that. It's more where you might want to land. So this is the planet of Omni Rusted. It has very little ocean. Interesting. So, what you're going to do first, check out your factions tab down here. This is the factions that are going to be in your world and how loyal they are to you, how friendly they are, etc. In Royalty Expansion, the Broken Empire will always, or the Shattered Empire, usually called the Broken Empire, will always start at neutral. Then you'll have a civil Outlander Union, a rough Outlander Union, which has, like, their start out hostile, they have a little bit of less technology with them. Three different tribes, sorry. One that is hostile, one that's neutral, one that starts out friendly, and then a pirate faction, pirate factions will always remain hostile. Same with the Savage Tribe. You can become friends with any of the, what I call neutral factions. The pirate factions, which is the Savage Tribe and the pirate bands, will never be friendly no matter what you do. We'll go into, of course, faction control later. So different things you can do in here. You can show the map size that you might want to start out with. I usually just go for medium because I never build out of that. What starting season you might want to do. If you start on auto, it will always start in spring. I don't even know why the auto thing is there. And then you decide where you want to land. Now, things to avoid. If you, for example, want extreme difficulty, you can go to the ice sheet. That is the hardest extreme difficulty possible. We'll just go through the biomes right now. Tundra is nearly as hard as the ice sheet, but you will actually encounter some things there. You will actually encounter other factions. You will actually encounter maybe some trees, maybe some animals occasionally, but very, very low on resources. You will mostly be dependent on what food you find on animals, and etc. Greenhouses, hydroponics, all that. It'll be very, very hard. If you want to go to the tundra, you're going to want to be like right next to, or at least close enough to, a friendly faction so you can go trade with them right away. Now, when landing, also note, you don't want to land too close to another area. If you try to, it will, if you land, this location was within 4 tiles within the faction base, they will feel you were encroaching their land. Relations with those factions will worsen every 15 days, which is one quandrum. You'll get in like -30 every single time, every single 15 days. If you don't care about being friendly with a specific faction, go for it. I personally don't recommend it. You want as many friendly factions as possible, at least for a while. Going on with the biomes, we go on to the desert. Desert, of course, is not the Sahara Desert. That's the first thing we think of when we hear the word desert. It does not necessarily mean a big, sandy, hot expanse with oases and mirages and camels and all that stuff. What it means is an area with very little vegetation or very little biodiversity in the vegetation in there. A glacier is technically a desert. So when you look at areas like this, you can think of desert. You're going to get very, very little plant life and extreme temperatures, such as up here near the ice cap, where we have a very low growing period. Next, boreal forest. Very low temperatures, very extreme temperature ranges, and generally cold. Boreal forest can have a lot of trees, but those trees will take a long time to regrow. You will generally only get pine. In these places, you will get a lot more biodiversity in the animals. You will get buffalo, you will get caribou, stuff like that. But it will be very hard to grow here, especially at the beginning. This I would consider a little bit advanced difficulty, but not super hard. Next, we go down to the Temperate Forest. The Temperate Forest is your neutral zone. If you're just beginning playing, or you don't feel you're that good, or you just want to build and just have a little bit of fun, Temperate Forest is really where you want to go. Temperate Forest is middling average temperature, middling growing period, lots of animals, lots of different trees, a lot easier to build up in if the weather and environment is not the difficulty that you're looking for. Next, we've got a swamp here. Swamp is a large wetland choked with vegetation and disease. The undergrowth is a lot more dense. The temperatures are a lot more extreme. Much of the terrain is marshy, and it's going to be very hard to build around. You're going to want a lot of bridges, a lot of water extractors, stuff like that, in order to find areas to build, or at least be confident in how you're building. Defensive-wise, lots and lots of rainfall. Growing period is going to be a lot easier. There's going to be a lot more ability to forage your beginning food, or forage food in general. The animal biodiversity is going to be a lot different, and you're going to get a little bit higher on disease. At 1.5 per year compared to the Temperate Forest, which is 1.2. Disease frequency in the Boreal, 1.0, etc. That's the desert. Where's the next biome? Here we go. Arid shrubland. This is kind of the, I would say, polar opposite of the ice sheet. It is the hot, very, very hot, very little plant life, very little animal life, mostly just a lot of rocks. But it's a shrubland as compared to the ice sheet. Ice sheet is nothing. Nothing but rocks. Arid shrubland will have some plants, but don't count on them. You can also see less average disease frequency, barely any rainfall. Growing period in these areas is usually year-round as compared to everything else. Now we move on to basically where you might want to go. That's all the different biomes in the base game. Things to look out for is the four different area types, sorry. There's flatland. Oh, tropical rainforest. I can't believe I forgot that. It's such a similar color to the temperate forest that I generally mix them up a lot of the time, and you want to watch out for that, actually. The tropical rainforest, very large biodiversity. Very, very dense forest. Easy to grow year-round. Problem is, very, very high average disease frequency. This says 1.7 per year, but that can be like either maybe one thing of malaria, which affects like one person, or everybody suddenly comes down with pneumonia, which is referred to as plague in this game. It's very hot temperatures, very easy biodiversity, lots and lots of plant life, very easy to grow. The biggest problem is disease. I honestly don't like the tropical rainforest because it seems like you always are dealing with diseases. If you rush penoxycycline, then you're solid, then you're good. But I prefer the temperate forest for a medium difficulty. I would say tropical rainforest as compared to the temperate forest is like normal and medium normal. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. We have the different types of land. There is flatland. Flatland is very little rocks. Very, very little rocks. In this, it's going to be very hard to find steel unless you trade for it, or you want to try and rush some kind of mining or hope to get very lucky very early. That's really the hardest part, is finding brickworks, finding mining, finding any steel, stuff like that. Next, you've got, there we go, small hills. Small hills, there's a little bit more rocks, but you can't count on them for your walls, such as you would in large hills or mountainous. So we're going to skip over small hills because that pretty much explains itself. It's like flatland, but you have a little bit more to dig through. You might have some mountainous areas, which you might have to watch out for the roofs in. Otherwise, you're going to be fine. Large hills is you can sometimes use the mountainous or the hilly, rocky areas for your walls, but generally you're going to want to be breaking a lot of those down. This is kind of a middling difficulty in the fact that you don't know exactly where the rocks are going to be, where you're going to come in, but it's going to be a lot easier to find steel and other, well, really, it's just steel that you kind of want to look out for. Silver, gold, uranium, plasteel, and jade. Not as important as steel, really. But then we go into an all different type, which is mountainous. There are two different types of mountains, and we're going to go over these. Mountainous is you're going to want to dig into the mountain immediately. The mountain is where you're going to have your home. You are dwarf people. You are mole people. This is where you live. The temperatures are much easier to deal with because you are literally surrounded by insulation. Biggest problem with mountains is it takes a long time to set up because you're having to dig instead of build. You have a lot more room to move around, and it's a heck of a lot easier to defend. The biggest problems, of course, are it's always ugly. It takes a long time to make it not ugly. And bugs. Anywhere that has a mountain roof, you can get insect incursions. And insects are a very strong event, almost impossible to start with, such as when you get caves. Caves are the hardest part of living in mountains. Now, not every mountainous area, I promise not every mountainous area, starts with caves. Sometimes you'll get mountains that don't have caves. That's the biggest thing to look out for. Caves give you a beginning area that you can basically start digging out in. They can give you some beginning food. They can give you some beginning resources. The biggest problem is you can't predict where the caves are going to go. You can't change where the caves are going to go. And the caves are very often filled with insects, which we will go over into in a later video. So if you're going to be looking for mountainous, try to avoid caves. Mountains are the biggest, easiest thing to defend, depending on how you build up your base and how you want to deal with insects digging in under it, occasionally, instead of raids. But also very hard to begin. So, in our beginning tutorial, we are going to go into flat land as an example. When you're looking at the terrain info over here, things you want to look out for is the stone types, average temperature, and growing period. If, on your planet itself, you build in the equator area around this middle here, you can sometimes get this growing period of year-round. It means it's permanent summer. Very easy to deal with different... Sorry, I just had a brain fart there. Very easy to deal with different types of temperature types, since the temperature is generally only going to stay the same. You will still get extreme temperatures and cold snaps and heat waves, but generally it's going to be year-round. This is a very easy place to go if you want to farm a lot, if you want a lot of animals, because there will always be green grass growing anywhere. Other places that you want, that you could possibly go if you're not looking at these. Let's look at stone types first. There is 3 different stone types here. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get 2. Oh, that's beautiful right there. The elevation only really changes the temperature that you're going to look at, so you don't really have to worry about that. If you're looking at a place that has 3 different stone types, I would honestly suggest moving on. It might seem like a lot of variety would be nice, but it's going to make it a lot harder for you to control the thickness and the defenses it's of your walls itself. Oh, I almost skipped this. You can't build in impassable areas. Anyway, looking at these, there are 4 different stone types that you can look out for. There's limestone, sandstone, marble... Oh, 5. Slate and granite. Limestone, sandstone, marble, slate, and granite is the order in which you can look at the defensive capabilities of your walls. Granite has the best. Limestone has the worst. Marble has a slight benefit in that anything you make out of it is more beautiful. Granite has the best defense. Those are the things you want to look for, is marble and granite. So this is where we're going to land right now, if I remember to do that. Anyway, other things that you can look out for when building or deciding where to land. Roads, paths, highways, and rivers and oceans. Paths, roads, all of this, it just affects your travel time. You can look at movement difficulty on these. So depending on the biome that you're moving through, will change how easy it is to move through, and the road type is how fast you're going to move on when you're in a caravan. So you can see here, paths, Moving difficulty 0.5, Temperate Forest +1, dirt path 50% speed. If we go to the highway here, ancient asphalt road, 50% speed. Nothing is moving difficulty 1 because it doesn't have the road on it. Any road gives you a little bit of the faster speed boost. No road is nothing. When moving through things like hills, you'll get up to movement difficulty 0.5, 2.5 there. You literally can't move through impassable terrain. Mountainous is moving difficulty 4. It's much, much harder to move through these areas. If you go to certain places like the ice sheet, moving difficulty +5 because it's +2 in winter. During winter, you will move twice as slow as normal. No matter where you are, during winter, you will move always. Your caravan will always move twice as slow over the planet itself. I generally don't ever put caravans out during those times. Next, we'll go into the different types of water. Water makes things interesting because you can use it as a defensive platform. As you can see, it does change the movement difficulty. Well, you'll see in-game. It changes the movement difficulty over it, and you can use it as a defensive measure. You can use it to split up your colony. You can use it for to make things prettier and more aesthetic for yourself, because pawns don't care about water. And you can use it for power as well with water generators, but that is going a little bit ahead of ourselves. I personally, if I'm going to land in a flat area, always try and land with water. If you're going to try and move into a mountainous area that has a river moving through it, you could use that for power, but generally you don't know where the water is going to go. You can kind of predict how the map is going to look from up above. For example, this, even though it looks like a hexagon here, you can see that the river is going to move from the lower left to the upper right, and it's going to cut through the entire map that way in the middle. If you go to some place like this, you can see the river is going to be a little bit more in the upper left here. Right here is going to be almost completely river in the upper left-hand corner, etc., etc. Same with paths. You can see that the path is going to come from the upper left. In the highway here, it's going to move left to right. Also, one of the cool things about landing on an asphalt road, free steel. You'll get free steel in the form of street lamps, old barrier markers, old highway markers, if you land in the ancient asphalt road. Ocean, landing next to a big sea, water, whatever, not a river, just large body of water, means that one entire part of your colony is going to be covered by a coastline. Coastlines can be used defensively, but you cannot build up walls on them unless you use special types of bridges that usually come in mods. The biggest problem with that is if you try and build next to the coastline, you can put down water wheels for power, but enemies can just walk around them because you can't build on beaches. It's too sandy. Even if you build out bridges or heavy bridges into the water itself with different mods, it's the only way to defend against that. So, good or bad with a coastline. Let's try and find, for an example, right here. This would be a preferred place to land. We got limestone and marble there. You want to look for the stone type that is going to be the most defensible, because that's when you're going to be building your walls out of. So right here, limestone, not that strong. Kind of pretty. Marble, very pretty. Middling medium strength in defensive capabilities. Marble would be what I'd be building my walls out of here. Marble and granite is the best to look for. I had somebody complain in one of my old tutorial videos that I wasn't telling them where to land, which seems kind of ridiculous, to be perfectly honest, because you play the game however you want to play. I prefer marble and granite. You got something pretty to make furniture out of, different walls out of, granite for defensive capabilities. We've got a really long growing period, 50 to 60 days, 11th of December to the 1st of December. That's almost the entire year to grow. Large amount of rainfall, at least over 1,000 millimeters. 100% forgeability. Average disease frequency is 1.2. Movement difficulty is 1. There is a river and it is flat. This is my preferred place to go. That is all we're going to cover for this specific video. We will go into character decisions next and what kind of things you want to look for in your colonists. If you have any questions, make sure to include them in the comments and I will try to answer as best I can. I am OmniRusted. You guys are awesome. You have a great day.